Roger Stone, who is on the move constantly. Roger, good to see you.
Owen, I'm on my way to New Smyrna Beach, Florida for Trump Fest, sponsored by the South Volusia Republican Club, co-sponsored by my friends at Bikers for Trump. So any opportunity I get to speak to the movement, I'm lucky to have it. I'm proud to have it. We're going to have a good time tonight, 6:30 in New Smyrna Beach. So we don't have the best facilities here, but we're rolling north while we talk to you.
Going to the beach, Roger. Come on, that's not fair.
Oh, and I learned only moments ago that the veteran CBS newsman Dan Rather launched a vicious personal attack on me and on the president. Speaking at the moving picture museum in Astoria, Queens, where he was invited to speak about the recent Netflix documentary, Get Me Roger Stone. Now, I have really held my tongue about this documentary. As you know, not exactly a conservative entertainment organ. And in this case, if you've seen the film, you know that the left-wing journalists Jeff Toobin, Jane Mayer, and others use the film as the occasion to attack me and to attack our president. Now I think their goal is to try to memorialize these attacks by getting the film an Academy. There is some discussion of that. Both Variety and The Hollywood Reporter have said that they are have included this on their list. So it is interesting to me that Rather has now exposed himself and what their agenda is, to use the film to smear me and smear the president. Needless to say, Dan Rather's specific comments were centered around his conversation with the family of the fallen soldier in Miami and the attempts by Congresswoman Frederica Wilson to politicize that and to hurt our president. I find it disgraceful, really disgraceful, the way they have smeared the president on this entire question, Owen.
Well, I want to get back to that, but quickly, I kind of want to go back to something you said. And again, as you know, Roger, if they're not attacking you, you're not being effective. So obviously, you're being effective right now. But you talked about how there's this relentless attack on the president of the United States, and really, by extension, his voters. And it's amazing to me that we're seeing, I mean, just look at the team up right now. You expect this from Obama. You expect this from Biden. You expect this from the Clintons. We expect these attacks on the president from those people. They're the Democrats. Okay, but we're also getting it from George Bush. We're getting it from John McCain. All of these people are teaming up together to go against Donald Trump. Roger, do you think the American people are seeing through this? Do you think they finally see the swamp for what it truly is?
Well, I think it's very important for people to understand, Owen, that our politics today are not Republicans versus Democrats. In fact, the globalists, the neocons, have infected both parties, and for the last 30 years, they have run my beloved Republican Party. Once the party of Barry Goldwater, once the party of freedom, individual liberty, small government, and unfortunately, the Republicans and the Democrats have now been dominated by the globalists. Let's examine the presidency of George W. Bush, if we may. He drove us to an unjust war with no justification, a war in Iraq where we were told that the government of Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, that he had acquired yellow cake enriched uranium. We now know these were all a conspiracy theory, Owen, a massive lie, lying us into war. George W. Bush crashed our economy, destroyed our economy, drove millions of jobs out of the country through his North American trade agreement. and now has the temerity, the nerve to criticize President Donald Trump. I'm sorry, George W. Bush was the single worst president in my lifetime. And I say that as a Republican. But the truth has to be told. He's now been rolled out by the globalists for this sustained attack on Donald Trump. But yes, I think you put your finger on it, Owen. The American people see through it. You see, they know the Clintons and the Bushes working together have created the problems we have today. And only a reform movement headed by Donald Trump himself can save this country.
Yeah, the puppet masters have stuck their hand where the sun don't shine and gotten George Bush back onto the platform to attack Donald Trump. Absolutely. And, you know, we're about to go to break here, Roger, but we'll come back. We'll talk about this phone call. I mean, it's incredible. It all backfires against him. This woman who wants to become a rock star over this feud with Trump over the phone call basically is now seen for what she truly is, someone who just is vain and wants attention on herself. And then you have the Gold Star widow releases the Trump's phone call after her husband was killed in Afghanistan. Very touching stuff. So it's sad to see that they'll try to politicize anything, attack President Trump on anything, but we're not going to let them get away with it. We got another segment with Roger Stone. In fact, we got Roger Stone the rest of the hour, so don't go anywhere. This is The War Room, and we will be right back. Well, Roger, when honestly, I didn't even want to cover this because the left attacks against President Trump have become so lowbrow. You know, they wanted to say when they go low, we go high, yet they keep going lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. I mean, really, it's like they continue to lower the bar. When I saw what they were alleging was rude that Donald Trump said, him saying he knew what he signed up for, as if he was saying that in some sort of negative light, but my response was, wait, that's why it was so honorable. He knew he put his life on the line for the country. He knew he put his life on the line for freedom. That's why he's a hero. I mean, you know, it's like a weird dynamic how they try to twist this and almost feed off of America's ignorance, or they think they have the public so brainwashed that if it comes out of CNN or MSNBC, then it must be truth. I think that, again, it's just a total flop.
Well, Owen, I agree with you. Look, I've known Frederica Wilson back to her days in the Florida legislature. She was a known eccentric and a self-aggrandizer then. She's a self-aggrandizer now. I mean, she's enjoying this. I think it's a national disgrace, but she's out saying, look at me, I'm a rock star. Well, she's a rock star because she smeared the president of the United States, and she brought disgrace to herself. Plus, in all honesty, this isn't Wyoming. It's not New Mexico. Why is this woman wearing a cowboy hat? A cowboy hat in Miami, those are only reserved for
Hold on a second, Roger, now hold on a second. Roger, you're very well known because of your fashion sense. That's not a cowboy hat. There's no such thing as a cowboy hat with sequins, not that I've heard of.
Well, and maybe in certain bars in Austin. But in all honesty, what is that outfit that she has on? Does she not understand that she looks like a clown? Because it's clownish. You see, there's a difference between being well-dressed and wearing a costume. Tom Wolfe, that's a costume. The high, starch-necked collar and so on. That's a costume, even though the tailoring is impeccable. In this case, the woman, she's in injury, and she seems to be milking this for some kind of notoriety, which I really find repugnant. We're talking about a fallen hero here. I wonder how many of these calls Frederica Wilson has made to the families of men and women who have died in the line of service to their country. I can't think of anything more horrific, but it harkens me back to an experience that I had where I was scheduled to meet with Donald Trump in his New York office. I was in Washington at the time. I called him in the morning and said, I really need to see you on a time-sensitive matter. It pertained to currency transaction rules then in front of the Treasury Department. And Trump said, no, I have to fly to Atlantic City this afternoon by helicopter. Couldn't we do this tomorrow? And I said, no, it's really urgent. I can jump on what was then the Eastern shuttle and be in New York in 2 hours if you will hold and wait for me. He said, come immediately. I'll send the helicopter down to Atlantic City with my executives, and then I'll have it sent back to pick me up, and I'll fly down after our meeting. So I rushed to the airport. I rushed to New York. I got to New York. I rushed to Trump Tower. I was 15 minutes into my meeting with Donald Trump when his assistant came in, ashen-faced, telling us that the helicopter to Atlantic City had gone down in the Pinelands and that everybody aboard had been killed. Now, I sat there and I watched while Donald Trump called each one of the widows of the men killed. First, he confirmed it with the superintendent of New Jersey State Police, who said, yes, Mr. Trump, I can confirm that there were no survivors and that everyone perished. Can you imagine the kind of courage, the kind of leadership it takes to make a call like that, to call one of these widows and tell them that their husbands had just now been killed? That shows you what kind of man Trump is. He's a man of enormous fortitude and faith and courage, and he did what leaders do in that instance, and he did what leaders do in this instance, seeking to bring comfort to the families of fallen heroes. I cannot see Frederica Wilson making such a call.
Well, and the amazing thing, Roger, is just like it shows the true nature of Donald Trump making those phone calls, it shows the true nature of this representative and just how desperate they are to get Donald Trump. You know, there's a lot of anomalies here because, one, in a speech just a week before they tried to attack Trump on this phone call, he talked about how making those phone calls was the toughest thing he'd ever have to do. How when he has to call the widows and the families of the lost soldiers and the fallen soldiers, how that's the toughest thing he has to do. Also, when Obama was president, I don't remember what the law was, but press and media was not allowed to film or release footage of the caskets being removed from the airplanes. All of a sudden, this footage magically gets out there, and then this representative, Frederica Wilson, magically has access to the phone conversation and then attacks Trump's on it. Something tells me that they had been planning this. I mean, how sick is that?
Well, anything for political advantage, anything to try to destroy the presidency of Donald Trump. You know, Frederica Wilson was scheduled to be at the North Miami Kiwanis Club yesterday. She skipped out on that, claiming that there were security concerns. So I contacted my contacts in the U.S. Secret Service, in the Broward County Sheriff's Office, and also in the Capitol Hill Police. None of them confirmed that there were any death threats or any threats whatsoever against Frederica Wilson. So she lied to her constituents, skipped this public meeting, but then a representative for Representative Wilson spoke at the Kiwanis Club meeting. I was actually there. I heard this, and it became an anti-Trump rant. It became a partisan rant fest against our president. Now, I thought the Kiwanis was supposed to be nonpartisan, bipartisan, or more importantly, non-political. This event was turned into an anti-Trump rally based on a lie by Frederica Wilson. She should have shown up and faced her constituents. It was not an unfriendly group, but it shows you what kind of greedy, grubby, grasping politicians we're dealing with here in both the Republican and Democratic Party, seeking to tear down the first reform president, the first outsider we've had as president since Ronald Reagan.
Now, here's just a quick clip. Let's go to clip 10. This is Frederica Wilson laughing about how she's a rock star now.
You mean to tell me that I have become so important? The White House is following me?
Oh my gosh.
This is amazing.
Oh my gosh.
It's amazing. That is absolutely phenomenal. I have to tell my kids that I'm a rock star now. I'm a rock star now.
All right, Roger.
Now.
Let's tease it. Let's tease it. The Roger Stone 2017 Best and Worst Dressed. Where's Frederica Wilson going to land?
She's got a high probability to make that worst dressed list, Owen. You know, I just let me just be as direct as I can. Frederica,
she's wearing a cowboy costume. All right, hey, we got to take a break. We'll be right back with Roger Stone. All right, we're going to have just 60 seconds of fun here with Roger Stone before we get into a more meaningful subject, that is the JFK cover-up documents that are to be released on the JFK thing. But we were just talking about Roger Stone's best and worst dressed list. I'm sure he's about to release that again, as he does every year. And I would hope that we not only see Frederica Wilson on there for her cowboy costumes that she wears while at work, but I'd also just like to give a plug for Maxine Waters and her terrible-looking wig. Maxine Waters should land on that list just for her wig alone. But yesterday, Roger, we were contemplating what was meant by Trump's tie. He was wearing a tie yesterday with gradient colors. Neither of us have ever seen it. I think I figured it out, Roger. Well, yesterday you may have heard that Playboy features the first transgender playmate on their cover. Say what you will about that. That happens right after Hugh Hefner dies. But, Roger, here I think was our answer. We didn't realize how keen the president is. See, we knew he was thinking something. We just didn't know what. Yesterday was LGBTQ Youth Go Purple Spirit Day. So that's what it was. President Trump was wearing the purple tie, the gradient red and white, totally out of his style, because he was obviously supporting the LGBT Youth Spirit Day.
You know, I do think that this president, particularly given his impromptu remarks at the Republican National Convention and his willingness to protect gay and lesbian people from the terrors of Islamic terrorism, something the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton declined to do, I think this may be the most pro-LGBT president in recent memory. He is a New Yorker, and he has been pretty forthright about that. But I can't really speculate as to why the purple tie. It is kind of outside the if you will. I do want to say, Owen, that I spoke to the president yesterday. He gave me the opportunity to make the case for the release of the classified documents that pertain to the John F. Kennedy assassination that are scheduled to be released only, I believe, 6 days from today. Now, those documents will be released unless the president exercises his prerogative to knock them back another 25 years. And I know from my other White House sources, not the president, that the Central Intelligence Agency and their head, former Congressman Mike Pompeo, have been urging the president not to release these documents, to put off release for another 25 years. The president very graciously gave me the opportunity to make the case for transparency. He asked a few pithy questions about what might be in the documents, why they are potentially controversial. He didn't tell me which way he was going to go on this. If he had, I wouldn't announce it here on InfoWars because I don't want to step on our president, but he was very gracious. He was very upbeat. He was very positive. He's clearly enjoying being president. And he did say one thing to me that I thought was important. He said, "You haven't seen anything yet. Wait till you see the way we're going to turbocharge this economy." So it cuts against all those things we heard last week from the left-wing mainstream media telling us the president was despondent and he was depressed and he was unhappy and he was frustrated. I didn't sense any of those things. I sensed a man who was enjoying life, enjoying leading, and he has a zest for combat with those who would seek to undo his presidency. He's a fighter by nature. He's a brawler, something he has in common with our friend Alex Jones, and he isn't afraid of the globalist onslaught. And I'm praying, Owen, that he will do the right thing vis-a-vis the JFK document dump.
Well, you know, they're trying to invoke the 25th Amendment and tell you that the president is unfit, but it's amazing to me, everyone's account, just like you were just saying, the president is upbeat. He's focused. He's on target. He's wound up. He's got just unbelievable energy. He's up till 1 a.m. in the morning tweeting. He's up again at 6 a.m. reading news, watching news, tweeting. I mean, the guy is just an absolute, like, superhuman, it feels like. I don't know how he has all this energy, but it's just shocking to me that he's able to have all this energy when he's under attack 24/7. He's surrounded by the swamp, working in the swamp, and he still has this energy and this great outlook on everything he's doing. It's amazing. But back to the JFK papers that the CIA is trying to keep from being released. Roger, why do you think the CIA would not want these documents to be released? What do you think? They're trying to hide something?
Well, there's a number of things in here that are historically significant, Owen. First of all, there is the CIA's psychological profile that they had done on Oswald. There are the transcripts of testimony by both FBI and CIA officials at the time that were classified and conducted behind closed doors. There are the records pertaining to the alleged visit to Mexico City by Lee Harvey Oswald. We have a recording, of course, between President Lyndon Baines Johnson and FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, in which Hoover tells Johnson, "We have pictures of the man in New Mexico, but he does not look like Oswald." Very interesting. Perhaps the documents about to be released can shed light on that exchange. We also have, and this is to me the most interesting thing, the secret documents of E. Howard Hunt, the documented diary of Hunt, the legendary CIA operative, later one of the Watergate burglars. His son, St. John Hunt, co-authored the Bush crime family with me, co-authored the Clintons' war, co-authored my upcoming book, and he tells me that the diary of his father that has been in the hands of the federal government now for over 50 years is double-barrel dynamite. He said it proves that there was a conspiracy to kill John F. Kennedy, that it proves the Central Intelligence and the mob and Big Texas Oil were all deeply involved. And yes, it proves that Lyndon Baines Johnson was the drum major, that he was the team leader. So I implore the president to release these documents so the American people can finally know the truth about Oswald's alleged trip to Mexico City, the truth about where and how and exactly what happened on Dealey Plaza on November 22nd, 1963.
Roger, is there anyone left, not necessarily in the government still, but from the government then or from the CIA or who was a part of these 3,000 documents, is there anyone left that's either pressuring for the release or for them not to be released, but more importantly to me, that can verify the actual documents, should they release them, that they are legitimate and not a forgery, that they can't pull one over on us?
Well, interestingly, the last major public figure involved in this controversy is George H.W. Bush.
Oh, great.
We now know that George H.W. Bush was definitely in Dallas the day of the assassination, that he stayed at the Sheraton Hotel only steps away from Dealey Plaza. There are some who believe that he was photographed in front of the Texas School Book Depository building. My friend Jim Fetzer, Professor Jim Fetzer, believes that he was supervising a shooter team from the Dal Tex building. We have established in my book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, that there's no doubt that there were multiple shooters. It would be a good hunch, Owen, that George H.W. Bush is not anxious for the release of these documents.
It all makes sense now. Think about it. CIA begs Trump to delay release of the documents. George H.W. Bush is still alive. He was with the CIA. Oh, maybe there's something to be hidden there. Folks, we are able to be live for 10 hours a day now and have all kinds of hosts and guests. I mean, you've seen how much we're expanding and kicking butt right now. And we're building a new studio, the biggest studio. It will be the biggest studio here at our Austin headquarters. Right now, we've got a DC headquarters that we launched with Jerome Corsi. So we are expanding, and we do that with your help by you going to InfoWarsStore.com and buying all the great products. Seriously, folks, you don't just hear Alex Jones say, I want to expand, I want to expand, I want to expand, and then you don't see expansion. You actually see the expansion, and he's going to continue to moving forward. So support us at InfoWarsStore.com, especially with this Brain Force special. You know, we're still running this Brain Force 50% off special. And Alex has, you know, one of the things about Alex is he's transparent when he talks about what he's thinking with these deals and why he introduces these deals and how he hopes they go over, especially with this Brain Force deal. Folks, we're talking about a Brain Force special that could literally change the game. Because if we continue to sell Brain Force at the rate we are, we can continue to get more of it, buy it more in bulk, and continue these specials. So the reason why the specials are able to stay 50% off is because you're actually taking advantage of it. So that's what makes this so great. You take advantage of the 50% off special, you get the product for half off, and then because you're buying it, we can continue to offer the price because